Hi, how are you? Here I am with the second part of the book Power versus Force Levels of Human Consciousness. Over the years of this study, millions of calibrations have defined a range of values accurately corresponding to well recognized sets of attitudes and emotions localized by specific attractor energy fields, much as electromagnetic fields gather iron filings. We have adapted the following classification of these energy fields so as to be easily comprehensible as well as clinically accurate. It's very important to remember that the calibration figures do not represent an arithmetic but a logarithmic progression. Thus, the level 300 is not twice the amplitude of 150. The ways the various levels of human consciousness express themselves are profound and far-reaching. Their effects are both gross and subtle. All levels below 200 are destructive of life in both the individual and society at large. All levels above 200 are constructive expression of power. The decision level of 200 is the fulcrum that divides the general areas of force and power. In describing the emotional correlates of the energy fields of consciousness, keep in mind that they are rarely manifested as pure states in an individual. Levels of consciousness as pure states in an individual are always mixed. A person may operate on one level in a given area of life, on quite another in another area. An individual's overall level of consciousness is the sum total effect of those various levels. Shall we understand this concept, what the author is trying to bring about? What he is suggesting is that there are different calibration levels which the author has found out using the technology of kinesiology, where the impact of various kinds of behavior are decided based on the calibration frequency with which the human mind is operating. For example, if I am a very affluent person and I eat the most delicious of food every day, for me, it will be a surprise if I get to know that there is someone in this world who doesn't even get one time of food properly. Now bring these two people and ask them the question about hunger. If you ask the person who is very affluent, do you know what is the meaning of hunger? The one who is affluent would say, "What's hunger? I eat the most delicious food every day." And if you ask the second person, who doesn't even get one time food, do you know the meaning of hunger? The second person would say, "Of course, this is my daily fate to see hunger, and sometimes I sleep without food also." Now the behavior of these two people depended on the life situations what these two people are facing. The author here describes this as the evolution of human consciousness and also criticizes humanity that humanity has till date not resolved a simple concept as hunger so as to rise to higher concepts which are beyond hunger. If the basic necessities of people are not filled up, how would society expect them to behave at higher levels of consciousness? If we do not provide food, if we do not provide education, if we do not provide cloth to people of society, and if there is an increase in robbery, who is to be blamed? Is it the person who has become a robber? Or is it the society that does not allow the person to get his required level of food, his required level of clothing, for which he has to go and steal in others' places? The author describes that human behavior is dependent on human situations, and human situations are motivated by attractor energy patterns which are created in their life by the situations they encounter. Let us try to understand this concept, my friends, that how human level of consciousness varies from person to person. How at the same place two people behave differently. How at the same place one is very, very compassionate and one is not compassionate at all. How these situations arise, how these situations operate. So author here has actually described calibration levels and associated numbers to each level of calibration of human consciousness. The first calibration level, according to the author, which is at the calibration level of 20, is shame. Shame is the most basic human tendency, according to the author. The level of shame is perilously proximate to death, which may be chosen out of shame as conscious suicide, or more subtly elected by failure to take steps to prolong life. We all have some awareness of the pain of losing face, becoming discredited, or feeling like a non-person. In shame, we hang our heads and slink away, wishing we were invisible. Banishment is a traditional accompaniment of shame, and in the primitive societies from which we all originate, banishment is equivalent to death. This is the level 1, my friends. And it is so true that we all exist in the society keeping the things that can be shamed away. We do not show those things to the society that might cause us shame. It can be anything about ourselves. It can be anything about our family. It can be anything of that sort. But there are people who operate only at the level of shame. I would give the example of people who are not allowed to express themselves openly in the society. These people operate at the level of shame because they cannot come out of the shame and speak out their challenges to the society. And the author is not judgmental about any level of consciousness here. He is just suggesting that based on calibration level 20, shame operates. Further, guilt. Guilt is at calibration level 30. Guilt, so commonly used in our society to manipulate and punish, manifests itself in a variety of expressions such as remorse, self-recrimination, masochism, and whole gamut of symptoms of victimhood. Unconscious guilt results in psychosomatic diseases, accident proneness, and suicidal behaviors. Many people struggle with guilt their entire lives, while others desperately attempt escape by ammorally denying it altogether. Oh my God, guilt. Let us say somebody marries someone without the consent of their family, and their family is not able to accept this marriage at any cost. The whole life of these two people go in the guilt that they could not satisfy their family needs of marrying the people their family wanted them to. And many people operate through this level of guilt. Simple examples. Working mothers, they have to go to their office every day, resulting in them not being able to give enough life to their children, enough time to their children, the right amount of food, the right quantity of food, the healthiness they want their children to be. Rather, they employ nannies for their children, caretakers for their children at home. Although they earn money in the process, still a tiny part of them also stays in the guilt that they are not able to give enough time to their children. And this is the part of our current society. It can be for a man or woman as well. The calibration level of guilt goes through people altogether during various circumstances. Guilt domination results in preoccupation with sin and unforgiving emotional attitude, frequently exploited by religious demagogues who use it for coercion and control, such as sin and salvation. In our society, in religions, generally, pleasure is associated with guilt. That's why all the religion, somewhere or the other, ask humanity to denounce whatever they have and become in such a way that they do not enjoy the pleasures, rather surrender the pleasures to the universal self. One way of looking at this is the society and the religions do not want individuals to over engross themselves in the journey of pleasure so much that they get lost and do not get in touch with their own self, or do not get in touch with God and forget themselves completely in the process of pleasure. To do this, religions have asked individuals to create limits while enjoying the pleasures of life. But this also creates a sense of guilt in individuals who want to lead a pleasureful life. If we are very religious, we will not go for more of pleasures in our life because we will always think that we should have limited pleasures in our life, of whatsoever kind it may be possible. And then what does it result in? When we become more pleasureful, when we go for more pleasures of life, we somewhere get the guilt also. Am I enjoying my life too much? If, for example, from childhood, somebody has not got any pleasure in their life, and they have suddenly started enjoying their life to the highest possible extent, they will get a feeling inside themselves of guilt that I am enjoying too much in my life without giving much of importance to my family or other things in my life. I think I should start enjoying less. Isn't it true, my friends? Don't we associate guilt? And don't we associate guilt with our own day-to-day leadings in our life? Energy level 50 is apathy. Apathy is the level characterized by poverty and hopelessness. The world and the future looks bleak. Pathos is the theme of life. Apathy is the state of helplessness. Its victims, needy in every way, lack not only resources but the energy to avail themselves of what may be available. Unless external energy is supplied by caregivers, death through passive suicide can result. Without the will to live, the hopeless stare blankly, unresponsive to stimuli, until their eyes stop tracking and there isn't enough energy left to even swallow proffered food. This is the level of the homeless and the derelicates of society. It's also the face of many of the aged and others who become isolated by chronic or progressive disease. The apathetic are dependent people. People in apathy are heavy and are felt as a burden by those around them. Too often, society lacks sufficient motivation to be of any real help to cultures as well as to individuals at this level, because they are seen as drains of resources. This is the levels of Street of Calcutta, where only the saintly such as Mother Teresa and her followers dare to tread. Apathy is the level of abandonment of hope, and few have the courage to really look in its face. When I visit old age homes, when I meet people who are needing help from others, even to conduct their day-to-day activities, I can see apathy in their face. I can see hopelessness in their face. I can see they do not want to live any further, rather, they await a moment where they can live life and go away. And this is where the author is trying to tell society that as a society, why don't we create forums where people do not create this feeling of apathy towards themselves? Rather, even at the face of death, they find themselves among individuals who are so enthusiastic in their service that these people do not feel a sense of lack in their life, or do not feel that they are alone left somewhere and they are not cared by. The next level, energy level 75, grief. This is the level of sadness, loss, and dependency. Most of us has experienced it for periods of time, but those who remain at this level live a life of constant regret and depression. This is the level of mourning, bereavement, and remorse about the past. It also the level of habitual losers and those chronic gamblers who accept failures as a part of their lifestyle, often resulting in loss of friends, family, opportunity, as well as money and health. In grief, one sees sadness everywhere. This level colors one's entire vision of existence. Part of the syndrome of grief is the notion of the irreplaceability of what's been lost or that which is symbolized. Although grief is the symmetry of life, it still has more energy to it than apathy does. Thus, when traumatized, apathetic patients began to cry, we know they are getting better. Once they start to cry, they will eat again. There are some moments of life where I have faced this very truly to myself, where hunger goes away from your life. There was one such moment which I have faced in my recent past, where I did not feel hungry at all. Neither did I had the energy to pick up a piece of bread and put in my mouth. I think this was the moment of being apathetic. And the day I started crying, I realized that I have relieved myself a bit of the apathetic situation and come into the situation where I can start eating food. This is the place of grief. Let's go to the next level. Energy level 100, fear. At the level of 100, a lot more life energy is available. Fear of danger is healthy. Fear runs much of the world spurring on endless activity. Fear of enemies, old age, rejection, and multitude of social fears are basic motivators in most people's life. From the viewpoint of this level, the world looks hazardous, full of traps and threats. Fear is favored official tool for control by oppressive totalitarians. And insecurity is the stock in trade of major manipulators of the marketplace. The proliferation of fear is as limitless as the human imaginations. Once fear is one's focus, the endless worrisome events of the world feed on it. Fear becomes obsessive and they may take any form. It can be like losing a relationship, leads to jealousy, chronically high stress level. Fearful thinking can balloon into paranoia or generate neurotic defensive structures, and because it's contagious, becomes a dominant social trend. Fear limits growth of the personality and leads to inhibition. Because it takes energy to rise above fear, the oppressed are unable to reach a higher level unaided. Thus, the fearful seek strong leaders who appear to have conquered their own fears to lead them out of its slavery. How often in our family we look towards individuals who have conquered or who have achieved something in life to take us out of our current situation. Because we ourselves lack the courage of coming out of own fear, we try to depend on individuals who have overcome their fears. Fears is such a great motivator of life, and it is always that the fear of losing one's identity or losing possessions or losing things that individuals are motivated to work in a defensive pattern in such a way that nobody can cause any harm to us. I have seen in my life certain individuals, I used to fear them so much that if they go from one side, I will go from the other side. Fear is just in the mind of individuals. In fact, the more we fear things, the more we attract them. And that's why the next level after fear is desire. Energy level 125. Even more energy is available at this level. Desire motivates vast areas of human activity, including the economy. Advertisers play our desire to program. Advertisers always advertise things in such a way that the thing we never desire, we start desiring. Desire is also the level of addiction, wherein it becomes a craving more important than life itself. The victim of desire may actually be unaware of the basis of his motives. Some people become addicted to the hunger for attention and drive others away by their constant demands. The yearning for sexual approval has produced an entire cosmetics and fashion industry. Desire has to do with accumulation and greed, but desire is insatiable because it's an ongoing energy field, so that satisfaction of one is merely replaced by unsatisfied craving for something else. For instance, multimillionaires tend to remain obsessed with acquiring more and more money. Desire is obviously a much higher state than apathy or grief, for in order to get, you have to first have the energy to want. TV has had a major influence on many oppressed people in calculating wants and energizing their longings to the degree that they move out of apathy and begin to seek a better life. One can start us on the road to achievement. Desire can therefore become a springboard to yet higher levels of awareness. Energy level 150. Oh my god. Anger. Although anger may lead to homicide and war as an energy level, it's much further removed from death than those below it. Anger can lead to either constructive or destructive action. As people move out of apathy and grief to overcome fear as a way of life, they began to want. Desire leads to frustration, which in turn leads to anger. Thus, anger can be fulcrum by which the oppressed are eventually catapulted to freedom. Fury over social injustice, victimization, and inequality has created great movements that lead to major changes in the structure of society. But anger expresses itself most often as resentment and revenge, and is therefore volatile and dangerous. Anger as a lifestyle is exemplified by irritable, explosive people who are oversensitive to the slights and become injustice collectors or quarrelsome, belligerent, or litigious. Since anger stems from frustrated want, it's based on the energy field below it. Frustration results from exaggerating the importance of desires. The angry person may go into rage just like a frustrated infant. Anger leads easily to hatred, which has an erosive effect on all areas of a person's life. I can't give more examples of angers. If I could not travel to a certain country because so and so situation arrived and so person had dependency on me and I could not go, so I feel very angry on that person. I feel so angry that I tend to even erode the relationship that exists. Anger is such an enemy of human life that nothing else can corroborate anger. And that is the reason anger, although it is at an energy level of 150, it rules the life of many people. And you never know when anger comes, how it comes and destroys the life of individuals and then suddenly vanishes. And then you again meet this person with whom you are angry. You feel like, oh, where has the anger gone? This is the level 150. Thank you so much for listening to me. I'll further continue the calibration level. Hi, how are you? Here I am with the second part of the book, Power versus Force, Levels of Human Consciousness. Over the years of this study, millions of calibrations have defined a range of values accurately corresponding to well-recognized sets of attitudes and emotions localized by specific attractor energy fields, much as electromagnetic fields gather iron filings. We have adapted the following classification of these energy fields so as to be easily comprehensible.